Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Well, here in New Brunswick's seat of democracy, it is appropriate that we take time to recognize those that have given so much to allow us to exercise our democratic rights. Today is VE Day, the 69th anniversary of the Allied victory in Europe during the Second World War. It was 69 years ago today that Allied forces achieved victory over fascism, tyranny, and oppression. It was a victory with a heavy cost. Over 1,800 New Brunswickers gave the ultimate sacrifice, a debt we can never repay. Many New Brunswickers from all walks of life and all corners of our province answered the call. They sacrificed their health, their sanity, their time with loved ones, their safety, and their creature comforts to serve at home and overseas. Mr. Speaker, excuse me, it is because of the service and sacrifice of these veterans that we enjoy our privileges here in this House. They are an inspiration to us all, and we are very fortunate to welcome a few of those veterans here with us today. We have a few veterans of the Second World War that are joining us here today, and I'd ask them to stand as I introduce them. I'd like to ask Mr. Edmund Martin to stand. Mr. Martin was a member of the Carleton and York Regiment. He landed in Normandy on the third day and fought through the liberation of Holland and the rest of the war. In fact, he was a dispatch rider and often made trips at night to get messages to different units that were operating on the front. Welcome, Mr. Martin. I'd also like to ask Mr. Roland Mansfield to stand. Mr. Mansfield was born actually in 1928 in Milton, New Brunswick, and during the Second World War he served with the Merchant Navy. He later was a paratrooper with the Royal Canadian Service Corps. Welcome, Mr. Mansfield. Mr. Angus Hamilton is with us. Mr. Hamilton. Mr. Hamilton served with the Royal Canadian Air Force and in the Second World War. Welcome. And as well, we're joined by Margaret Hamilton. Margaret's still very stylishly sporting her uniform blazer from the time when she served during the Second World War with the Royal Canadian Navy. Welcome, Margaret. We're also joined by Gerald Hawkins. Mr. Hawkins served with 431 Squadron of the Royal Canadian Air Force. Welcome. As well, Mr. Marshall Smith is with us. I'd ask Mr. Smith to stand. As you can tell from his unique maroon blazer, Mr. Smith was a member of the 1st Canadian Parachute Battalion and served as a paratrooper in the Second World War. Welcome, Mr. Smith. We're also joined by Mr. Joseph Barrett. Mr. Barrett was an infantryman and served with the North Nova Scotia Highlanders through the occupation forces and in fact stayed in Germany until 1946. And many people might believe that the end of the war was a very clean and easy time, but I can assure you that was not the case, and Mr. Barrett stayed through Germany in that difficult period. Welcome, Mr. Barrett. We're also joined by Malcolm and Lorna McNeil, and I'd ask them to stand as a pair, perhaps. I know Lorna's a bit bashful, but she's been a long support to Malcolm. Now, Malcolm was a member of the 1st Canadian Armoured Brigade, and within that brigade he was a member of the Royal Canadian Signals Corps, which was an important link through all those units. And he served through Italy, Holland, and Germany. And in fact, he was well known for driving his Jeep around to make sure that he could get communications with the various units. So welcome to both Malcolm and Lorna McNeil. Welcome. We're also joined by Mr. John Mahar. Mr. Mahar was a member of the 86th Bridge Company, and as the name would suggest, they built bridges throughout Europe. It was a combination of the Royal Canadian Engineers and the Royal Canadian Service Corps. And Mr. Mahar was there through the liberation of Holland, which he remembers well. He's joined today by his daughter-in-law, Marie. Welcome to Mr. Mahar and to Marie. We're also joined by Frida Van Ness, who I believe is perhaps in the gallery. Frida was the wife of Jack Van Ness and is here today representing the two Jacks, Jack Van Ness and Jack Fairweather, who were immortalized in Will R. Bird's book, The Two Jacks, both members of the North Nova Scotia Highlanders. We welcome the Van Nesses here with us today. We're also joined in the gallery by many veterans, their friends, family, and those who support veterans in our community. Among the organizations represented is the Royal Canadian Legion, the ANAVETS, the Army, Navy, and Air Force Veterans Association, the CAV, the Canadian Army Veterans Motorcycle Unit, OSIS Peer Support Network. We have representatives of the Black Hatters, the Armoured Corps Society, the Blue Helmets, the Peacekeeper Society, and members of the regimental associations of the Royal Canadian Artillery, the Royal New Brunswick Regiment, the Royal Canadian Dragoons, the Princess Patricia's Canadian Light Infantry, the Royal Canadian Regiment, and of course the Royal New Brunswick Regiment. Mr. Speaker, our thoughts go first and foremost to our veterans of the Second World War. It's a pleasure to have them here with us today, and I'd like all members of the legislature to join me in welcoming them and thanking them for their service.